when we start Absolute Superman number 7, we immediately pick up basically right where we left off. We're back. We're still in the Nevada desert. However, we see the Omega Men. Now, these aren't the robed figures. These are soldiers,
Yeah, I was gonna
right?
say the other ones kind of look like priests, and they're priests as much as robots could be priests. They're the ones, the scientist versions, maybe. In video games, you always have the scientist ones that use the magic and shit, right? And then you have the soldiers, like you're saying. These look like straight up, yeah, like they're not. They've got weapons, They don't have robes on. Um, Insurgency.
Well, and since we didn't really get any dialogue from the other priest-looking ones, here it makes this even more because we see them say synchronizing cortexes, right?
Mm.
And they're going in there, but they're going into this facility, which we have to assume because it's still in the Nevada desert. And when we look at it, is these Omega Men, these people here, they're trying to breach the facility that we were just at, right? However, interesting enough, uh, so they're going in and they're trying to breach us, and they do a scan, and they're like, there's no signs of life. So maybe it is a different facility, but
Mm.
within the Nevada desert. Because obviously, you've got a couple of different facilities going here in the Nevada desert. There's room,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah,
Um,
it could be one that they haven't fully spun up yet. Maybe it's a new property they just bought. Maybe it's an old one that some shit got really fucked up in and they just abandoned.
Well, so now here's the interesting thing, though. So they're talking about, and they're like, no life signs detected, but they're talking about the amount of power that this place pulls from the grid, uh, something big. And what they're saying is basically this is the server cluster that contains the Brainiac algorithm, right? And they're like, wow, it would be weird that they would leave this place abandoned. Like
Mm.
there's no human presence. So they're like, basically like Omega Man attack. They go after it, and next thing you know, we see one of them, and it just is getting shocked, and he's screaming out in freaking pain, and it looks like his flesh is being torn apart,
Yeah, he got
and
flayed.
then yeah, and then so they take some cover positions. They think they're sniper fire, and then they hear this basically like a voice, or at least that's what you're led to believe. It's this voice, and they realize that somebody's hacked their neural network. Right? They're in
Mm.
there because then we see another one, and he's basically he feels like he has no muscles left. Right? His body's just gone limp, and he can't control anything. And another one that is literally puking his own guts out. Right? I mean, actually, those are his
Yeah,
guts.
his guts are coming out.
Um,
Yeah, liquefied.
so and then we see this next one, and we see these little like molecule. We got the little COVID molecules right there. That's probably what did it. He wasn't vaccinated, but we see these guys get the final member just getting attacked, and he's literally, we hear, obviously the narrations talk about the brain. He's like, that brain of yours. And then we go over to the next page, and we see a very very unique looking Brainiac figure. He's got
Yeah.
the three here, so we know it is. However, the odd thing is, though, so we see it be Brainiac, and he's like, I'll take it from here. But then we get Brainiac Journal, and
Mm.
we get basically, the time and weather report and the sun setting. So you're like, all right, like that's kind of a weird thing to just, for your journal there. Cool. We got this guy sitting out here basically, being torn to shreds, but you want to talk about like at sunrise what the temperature is. Cool.
I will say this version of Brainiac reminds me. I don't know if you've seen an old movie with Charlie Sheen called The Arrival, um,
Yes.
with aliens, and their legs bend backwards in that film,
Hmm.
and that's just exactly what this reminded me of. Um, so anyway,
Good movie. Now there is Arrival with Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner, also a good movie, completely different though,
yes,
not related. Uh, so the next couple pages we see Brainiac, and he's talking with this figure that he's operating on slash is slightly disfigured, and we realize he's losing it, right? Because he's trying to figure out this Superman conundrum, right? Because he doesn't know who and what this being is. because we you get the impression he's been up to date on everything going on with the Lazarus group there, so he knows that there's this being that is able to have all these unique powers, and he's freaking out. He's even like trying to talk to his bottled cities, and he's talking about all these cities that he's
Ah,
bottled over the course of traveling the galaxies and everything, which I
so
love.
good. It's
I,
so
I
good.
love that.
Yeah, yeah. That aspect of this is again. It reminds me again of the Krypton series because
Yes,
yeah, you know what I mean. Yeah.
yes, I definitely get that feeling from this Brainiac, right? That's why I love this.
Hmm.
That's why I say I love when these coming up, and he even shatters a couple of these bottled cities, right? Because
Oh,
he's
pessoal.
he's wanting to know, and he doesn't have any answers, and we see him, and it's almost Joker esque of like he's scratching his brain because the brain's open. And he's talking about like he's trying to figure this out, and he's talking to this person that is in pretty rough shape. And so we do a quick flashback, and we go many years earlier, and we see him being birthed slash created, basically brought online to life, and we see a more uh, notable looking Brainiac figure, and it basically says, "Hey, you are Brainiac 419,732, okay, and you serve the collective." And then he's handed this shovel, and he is brought into this room where we see an entire slew of what looks to be dead Brainiacs.
Yeah.
And he is told that basically you are going to shovel these Brainiacs into this incinerator. That is your one job. You will never leave this room. And he asks, he goes, "How long is my shift? How long does it last?" He says, "As long as you do." Okay,
Yeah.
so
So this Brainiac used to be a janitor, and he got all pissed off because he saw again. I know he's supposed to be incognizant, right, or corporeal, I guess. So like he sees all the previous versions of him, right? So he's thinking like, "Am I going to end up like one of these? I gotta." Basically, it's essentially digging his own grave, right, or what's left of the grave. Uh,
so the interesting thing is when we go over to the next page, and we're at day 2,844, right? He actually encounters a functioning Brainiac that's in the trash heap, right? But this one's called 8,238,759, leading to believe that there are a lot of other iterations. But also, if he's 419,732, how has he made it past the 8,238,759 guy? I'm not going to keep saying that as their names. That's way too many to say. Um, but it also lets you know there's been a shit ton of Brainiacs, right? So the collective is they're just creating these Brainiacs and creating these Brainiacs. Uh, so then we go up, and we're at day 49,901. Okay, and we see this nice empty clear room, and he's like, there's no refuse, there's no anything, and there hasn't been any for a while. So now he's going to go out and he's going to seek answers. So when he goes out and he leaves the room and he goes to seek the answers, he sees where all these Brainiacs are being created, and he sees the one in the chair, and he's like, "Hey, are you Brainiac 1?" Right?
mm.
And there's some discussion, and he doesn't like the answers. So then he takes care of that guy, and he gives himself a little bit of a promotion, because earlier on they say you have to be basically like a level 88 to get any information past basically being where you're at. You are a zero.
Mm.
So he gives himself a promotion. I am Brainiac. Boom. I am level 100. Now I have access to do all this. He gets in a ship, and he's going to go out amongst the stars, right? And for a very long time, that's what he's done. And that's where he's bottled these cities and everything, and that's led us up to the moment where you're at now. So now we're back to he's talking to what's left of the person on the table, and again, this is kind of his buddy that really isn't doing too much of responding, but it's helping him maintain his sanity as he figures out this Superman conundrum.
It's a
Well,
little creepy. I'm not gonna lie.
it is a little bit, but it's interesting. I like it. I'm sorry, I like it. Um, so then he decides he's going to contact the collective of the Brainiacs, right? This council of Brainiacs, and he basically he's talking to them, and he has a sample of the red dust from Superman's cape. Because if you remember from the initial 5 episodes, that Superman's cape is basically this, it's part of Soul, right? And all that, it actually has parts of, the dust of Krypton, what's the leftovers of Krypton after being destroyed, right? So he gives the sample, and basically they're saying, hey, there's no record of any of this in within the collective, which they're supposed to know all. And again, then now he's kind of losing it more. They even mention the adepts of Oa. I thought that was interesting, right?
Mm.
And they mentioned the Dark Stars and everything, and they're trying to, we'll get into that in a different episode. But then finally, one speaks up as he's about to lose his shit. One speaks up and says Krypton, and then
Mm.
it comes to them. They're like, "Oh yeah, this was a planet within the Rao sector, and it's been destroyed." They also say that they have some particles from the planet that have some radioactive properties, kryptonite,
Mm.
coming into play. They basically download, or they allow this Brainiac to download a sample that he is printing off, and then they're like, "Who are you? And who are you to call a meeting of the collective?" And he cuts the call off, and now he is singularly focused on, he has this sample that he has radioactive properties that he's putting together, can possibly harm this individual that comes from the planet Krypton, right? So the buddy that's been on the table, that's not been in great shape, that we've seen him talking
Mm.
to, he comes to a very abrupt end as he basically has figured out what his next move is and how he is going to deal with this Kryptonian. All right. So we see old dude basically go to a pile of mush. However, the ironic thing is he calls in other
I
Brainiac
was gonna
slaves
say
to take care of the refuse. He's
he
like, hey,
yeah, he kind of learned something there when he was shoveling the dead bodies of his brethren, right? And yeah, I mean it's very ironic. The history repeats itself, and then they're calling him Brainiac, right? Like it's not Brainiac 570, Brainiac 1. They refer to him as Brainiac, and yeah, he has that reconstituted printing of of kryptonite. So uh, kind of you see what he's going to be doing, possibly a way to kill Superman or at least fight him. And I will say this version of Brainiac is fucking fantastic. It is it
I
is
love this version of
very
Brainiac.
grotesque. You get some of the backstory of where this Brainiac particularly came from, the collective of Brainiacs, which is kind of funny because he was on a Zoom call with the other ones, and like getting their input. But what's really kind of throwing me too is he's still kind of controlling the weather, right? Like he even says it is like, yeah, this is when the sunset is, this is blah blah blah, right? Why does he give a shit about Earth? Why hasn't he already subjugated them and made them, destroyed them and made them into this thing? And you realize from the very beginning of this, again, it's he's confounded by Superman. He doesn't understand what it is. He wants to collect possibly where this Superman has come from at this point. For me, I don't understand why he hasn't subjugated this Earth already.
Well, and where does Ra's al Ghul come into play? Sorry, guys, I get really
Yeah.
bad on saying Ra's sometimes because the Arrowverse, or in the Dark Knight trilogy when it's Raish. But
Mm.
where does Ra's al Ghul come in all of this, and how did they
Yeah.
become buds? Right? Did he tap into that Zoom call? Like,
Yeah.
did he get a fucking calendar invite? Like, hey, Zoom call, we're taking over the universe. Like, it's interesting, but that's why I say, like, when I read these two, this has been my favorite part of the Absolute series thus far. Because we got a lot more of the Superman origin, which I know you're not an origin story fan, but this is a completely different telling, right? So I'm good with
Mm.
this one. And it's a very unique way to do it. Uh, and it's nice to see the Cansol for the little part they did play. It's nice to know that even in the Dark Universe they have not changed and all that. But yeah, I love the way they do Brainiac. It kept me engaged the entire time. I was like, oh shit, what is going on? I love it. We've got a video coming out where we'll discuss some of the newer absolutes, like with the Martian Manhunter. I'm not as big a fan of that because it did not keep me engaged like this did.
Yeah. Well, and this very last page is very interesting too. Um, where he has you found out who that guy he's talking with, or not that guy, but a different one, I guess. That he has captured uh, one of the peacemakers um, to find out, or I guess he's implanting stuff in them, maybe to use as uh, a way to fight Superman, maybe an inside guy, a mole, or something like that. It's hard to tell from the dialogue on that last page, but um, punishment for Pakistan. He's wanting to
So
die.
what you realize is that uh, the one that he's doing that to is Christopher Smith. So that is the Peacemaker.
The Peacemaker. Hmm.
So
Interesting.
it's interesting that yeah he's doing all of that, but it is to the actual Peacemaker, or who
Mm-hmm.
we know as being the Peacemaker.
The Peacemaker. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I would say both of these, by far, probably. Actually, this issue 7, is the best one I've read. It's it's long as fuck too. Like, this
well,
is
yeah,
long.
and maybe it's part of uh it being longer, but also the fact that I feel like we got so much more out of this. Where like I'd said with a couple of the issues, were like in the original Absolute Green Lantern one, like we didn't really go very far, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we only went like this little bit, and it expanded a whole comic where I feel like we got the most information going out into all the different like the universe here out of this issue alone than we have most of the rest of the Absolute Universe so far.
Agreed. Agreed.
All right, guys. Well, this ran substantially longer than I was wanting it to. I
It's worth it.
apologize. However, it was there was a lot of information to cover. There was a lot going on in these two issues. So we hope you guys will think it's worth it too. If you do, you might as well then go ahead and give the video a like. He's shown you where as usual. Subscribe to the channel so you do not miss out on any more of the. I believe what we're going to start doing is we're going to try to do this where we break up maybe an issue or two each of the absolutes, especially with the Batmans and the Supermans, to try to give a little more like when we get these types of Superman for sure, because it is going to be a continuous comic. Um, to try to give you this in a little more digestible instead of bringing you like 18 fucking issues at one time. That's too hard to follow. It was hard enough
Mhm.
to follow with these two. So if you do enjoy that, you do like that, you do want more information on them, let us know down in the comments. While you're already liking and subscribing, let us know down in the comments, are there particular issues or a particular one of the 6 different absolute series that you would like us to put some more focus on, because we can do separate videos for that as well.
Absolutely. It doesn't even have to be. It doesn't have to be in the absolute as well, because as you guys know, we've been doing a lot of the Justice League Unlimited stuff. But we were talking before this. Really, anything inside the DC All In, um, which, if you guys have been following this channel a long time, we've been discussing this for a while. When they relaunched DC All In, it has been fantastic. We've enjoyed a lot of the spinoff series. The New Gods is great. Even the Aquaman stuff, which I need to pick up. They didn't have the last one, 4 or 3 or 4. But either way, any of those would be glad to jump into and take a look at, because they've all been very good.
Yes, they have, and we are planning on doing some kind of combined, where we maybe like on these where that are only like 3 to 5 parters. We may do a combined synopsis of them. Maybe not quite as in depth of a breakdown as like we did here with the Superman.
Hmm.
And if you have the bell notifications clicked, you will get alerted when those videos come out. Mantis, I know this was a long one. Giggity. Do you have anything else?
No, I find it interesting. This particular issue was literally all baddies. I'm down for it, especially ones that do the experimentation. It's getting a little grotesque on the Brainiac side. Best, this is so good. This is so good, guys. You need to go out and get into the series. we definitely recommend getting all of the Absolute Superman series. Um, Particularly though, if you're going to pick it up, um, with us, watch on the videos with us. We're going through all of it. Basically, look, the amount of
Well, and do it now so you can still probably get like I do. I think I can get even issue 2 of Absolute Superman. There's like 1 or 2 left at the comic book store, right? This is the time to get into it so you can still stay up to date. You can still get these back issues and instead of having to wait for the graphic novel of it to come out, right? So now's the perfect time to jump on in with us, guys. And because I've got plenty more homework to do, we got plenty more issues to read because yesterday was comic book day. That is going to wrap it for us on this episode of You, Me, and DC, guys. Until next time, we'll see you then.